And Tina brought some cupcakes.
What's left of the cupcakes.
We ready? Okay.
I know, it's
Please
recycled.
say we're ready. We're coming back out of executive session into study session. The time is 5 PM. We'll take a 10-minute break to get our lunch and reconvene and discuss the other items on our study session.
Very good.
Okay, all right, folks. We'll call the study session back to order. The time is 5:08. Again, it's Tuesday, May the 2nd. And so the first item on the study session is discuss regular agenda items. Anybody have any questions on the items on the regular agenda for this evening?
I do not, Mayor.
Just one, Mayor, that more of a comment, because my questions were answered during my meeting with Ben and Mike, but on item K1 on the regular agenda, the information presented really didn't give a lot of background as to why we're looking at lengthening some of the periods for the permits to be outstanding. And so I'd like for Ben or someone just to briefly explain why we're lengthening these periods. Or Danielle.
Danielle
Sure.
Summers, Community Services Director. So in the past, we have basically just adopted the ICC code, which is 180 days with extensions that keep rolling as you get inspections. So every time you get an inspection, it would extend your permit for another 6 months. So around 2020, the decision was made that to give them a little bit more accountability so that you wouldn't have people keep on going with their permits about, years and years and years. So it was an accountability structure. But we found that working with some of the developers and some residents that are having a lot of trouble with contractors and materials and stuff like that, that they're needing a little bit more time. Materials and contractors are definitely harder to come by right now. They have been for the last couple of years since COVID hit. So working with them, we extended it, well, like the smaller permits like accessory structures and fences, we went back to basically what ICC requires. The new buildings, we just extended it 6 more months to give them a little bit more leeway to hopefully be able to get their houses done in a timely manner.
Okay. So I think this is really good. I do want to make similar comments tonight as we consider this, because this is just another way that the city is wanting to make it easier for its residents and businesses to work with us. So I really appreciate the updated ordinance. Thank you.
I see some of these rebuild programs are actually being spec housed now. They're putting them on the market as they're doing the rebuild program. It's not all just custom housing right now. They probably get those on the market a little faster than the ones that are doing the custom stuff.
So most of the ones that we see that are needing more of the extension, a lot of the track builders are starting to need a little bit more of an extension, but we're almost done with them. And they're the ones that are on the west end. We have 50, maybe 60 left, and then they're completely done. So, and they're starting to have some that they haven't sold yet, that they're kind of stopping and they're going on the other ones that have been sold. So they're running into a little bit of issue between their contractors and selling. The biggest part or problem that I've gotten people contacting me on are mostly custom homes. Most of the ones that we build, the tear down rebuild, are custom. Some of them are spec homes that are built and then they sell them after they're done. But they're still custom. They're still the larger homes. Most of the tear down rebuilds are not small homes anymore. So they're all running into that problem.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Dave? All right. Any other questions on the agenda?
I have some.
Okay.
So this is just regarding I-2, specifically the Valley View Culvert Rehabilitation Project. Can someone give me an idea of when this project is estimated to begin and end?
Ryan Sauter, Director of Public Works. I do not have a timeline for the actual construction. What we're looking at tonight is the engineering with Freese and Nichols, because they're gonna have to redesign the gabion undercarriage of the mattress, the concrete pad that comes out to the south of the bridge. They're also having to design some upgrades on the north side of the bridge as well. Once we get to the 60-90% phase, then we'll have an idea of what the timeline's gonna look like for construction. But they are pushing the engineering design through just as quickly as possible so that we can get construction started, because we can't afford much more failure underneath that section of the road.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I just want to make sure that we are communicating the project with the neighboring residents to make sure just that they're aware of what's going on. I've come across a few questions that for other projects that are going on in my district, and so the feedback that I've gotten is it would have been nice if we would have sent out some sort of communication, and maybe we did and they just didn't get it, but I just want to make sure that we're doing that with this project.
Once we're in the design phase and we get closer to the construction phase of it, we'll have notices going out to everybody that's gonna be affected in that area right there.
Okay.
And we'll put out some public notice for traffic as well, because it will affect traffic across the bridge.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. That's it for me.
At all? Anybody else? All right, let's move on to B2, discuss private directive regarding contracts for services with nonprofit organizations. I guess it's an extension. We talked about this last study session.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me here at this podium. I'm bringing back our contract for services again for discussion. We met last on April 18 during our study session, and we discussed that our contract for nonprofit are about to expire in September of this year. Staff asked for directions on funding amount per organization or setting up a ceiling amount for the nonprofit contracts. We also requested to give us guidance on contract term as 5 years compared to 3 years. And I appreciate you giving us guidance on setting the contract term at 5 years. There was a proposal of ceiling amount at $450,000 for the nonprofit contracts. I'm going to take you back to our table that we saw last time and reviewed and discussed. These were the funding requests we saw during April 18 study session. You asked for some clarification on some of these requests. I did reach out to Stanford Sisterhood. I did not hear back from them. And I reached out to Farmers Branch Chamber as well, and I have an updated number. So the table I'm going to share here is our updated number for the fiscal year 23-24. You do see some difference on number for Farmers Branch Chamber here. And that was their actual original request in their previous proposal. If you had a chance to look at that, they did ask to go back to 2020-21 proposal. That's the current, I do have a slide which I will refer to later in my presentation. They asked to go back to that, and that was exactly the same funding amount. But also, their contracts are performance-based, and they prefer staying with that performance-based contract. So looking at what they're willing to give, serve Farmers Branch community, business community, this is the amount they're requesting for. So what I'm hoping to accomplish here today is if we can agree on numbers, any of these, I'll take you back to the table, any of these or some of these, so I can start working on the contracts with them. And also, I'm going to propose, which we briefly discussed last time, is a case manager who can help us with our homelessness issues and our home repair program. We do see concerns on homelessness throughout Farmers Branch. And as council, as community, we do see that concern. Our departments right now are addressing it. Parks Department sometimes helps, our sustainability helps us with taking care of those issues and concerns. By having a case manager, that person will specifically focus on these issues and will help us serve our community. This is what I have for today, and I will open it for discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Council, comments?
So I just have a question. If you'll go back to that previous slide right before this one.
This one?
The next one.
Okay.
So I see that we're going to have that case manager position. So correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure that we're all speaking with same information. So for this case manager position, it's going to be shared with Capel.
Not at this time. We
Okay.
don't have any promises from that side yet. But I will refer to our point-in-time study where we have more impact of homelessness compared to that city. So for now, it's going to be Farmers Branch.
Okay. And then I see under one of the responsibilities, it says homelessness initiatives. How do those initiatives differ from the one that, I think there was one listed for $25,000, a child homelessness initiative or something like that? Yeah.
That's child homelessness initiatives.
So
So
how-
these
how-
will handle the one that we see right now, and I'm going to refer back to our point-in-time study where we have 13 individuals that are in Farmers Branch. And sometimes our departments, for example, I referred to Parks Department earlier, they go and they have to clean up. Our staff is not trained for that. And this is where our contractor is going to step in and help us take care of those things and address such issues.
So they're just going to be cleaning up after the homeless people?
And making sure to work with them where we don't have this issue, because we know that Dallas is also working on taking different initiatives and working with that. So there is a collaboration opportunity there with the city of Dallas as well.
So are we helping them find, I guess, suitable housing or food or some sense of stability? I'd like a little bit more understanding of what that position entails.
I'll jump in on this one real quick. And so, since study session, obviously these groups won't be talking. The child homelessness through MetroCrest services is preventing child homelessness. So you want to prevent folks falling into homelessness. What this position is really looking at is we do have homelessness in Farmers Branch. It's counted at 13 in total. We're not well equipped to handle it in some cases. We have law enforcement, we have parks, we have different things we can do, but it's managing that homeless population in Farmers Branch. There's a lot of resources in Farmers Branch and North Dallas that can be of assistance, whether it's mental health, whether it's MetroCrest services, but it's making sure we have that one person that can collaborate and organize, get a case on these individuals so we know who our homeless people are and are connecting them to the right resources and having that relationship to work with fire, police, parks to resolve any concerns we have with managing our homeless population that we do have. They would also handle certain programs that we struggle to manage, such as the repair programs. It would create a point of contact for that. We don't always need it, but when we do, we need it fast and we need results quick, such as the one time we had the big wind event and Daniel and I were out walking the neighborhoods, getting through that we needed a lot of help really quick. And at that point in time, we had the first kind of trial contract, but it's better suited to manage it internally if we can. Managing the relationship with Dallas and 635 is a constant relationship component. So it's who on staff do I send when we need something from Dallas? Right now it's an email train, sometimes it's a phone call, but building that relationship with their Office of Homeless Solutions as well. And then also working with our code enforcement team to create a program for when we have a certain homes that just need that helping hand. So whether it's a disabled veteran, a senior, somebody who they're here, they just need maybe a little help with the fence, a little help with some paint, bringing the volunteers and resources together, but somebody has to build it and getting those donated to the city, bringing that together. And you see different programs like this in different cities, but it's one to help people stay out of the code enforcement target, say, hey, let's get you caught up, do the right thing for the community. And so it's somebody to manage all these programs that we just don't have any experience managing and to leverage those resources and also to work with our nonprofits to bridge those with the homeless population that we do have. But we do have 13 homeless individuals at that point in time count. And you do see that in Farmers Branch. Sometimes you see folks experiencing that or you see the symptoms of it. And also when the symptoms become a concern, such as maybe an encampment, how do we manage that? Because there's a lot of rules. And so we have to make sure we're following the state's rules. And then also sometimes in those encampments, you find things that are dangerous. You find needles, sometimes you find drugs. It's making sure we send in a qualified contractor to clean up, to protect our staff. And so lots of moving pieces. And it's also a subject that when it happens, we can never move fast enough in creating that pathway for it. Did talk to Capella a little bit about this. Since their point in time count was 0, they're interested in watching and seeing how this grows in Farmers Branch, but they have a strong feeling they're going to need a partner in this in the future. And so what do we build here and how can they leverage that in the future? Because we did talk to them as well. What does this look like in the future or today? And so they know in the future they'll probably have some of these similar experiences and how can we work together on those as neighboring cities. But the need is here now in Farmers Branch, and so I would never recommend waiting until another city catches up to us. It's how do we do what we need to do today.
Yeah, okay. And then just a comment on the overall funding. I'm personally not ready to provide any kind of direction. It's, that's just my personal opinion. I've asked a few questions to gather some additional information from Ben and Mike. I think it's important to give the different organizations an opportunity to answer some questions in case we have them. I do have some questions for MetroCrest Services as well as both of the chambers. And so pending the ability to have that discussion with them, I'm not ready to provide any further direction at this time, but that's just me. And that's it for me.
Any other comments?
I have a couple of questions. This contract position is someone that is not going to be a full-time employee of the city, right? So there's not a benefit expense. What was the expense associated with that position?
Well, I'm looking at the number. If we go by the ceiling amount that we set up as 450, I'm looking at 70 to 75.
70 to 75,000 for a case manager to manage a home repair program and about 13 homeless.
Individuals.
Okay. the homeless folks, these aren't people that live in Farmers Branch that became homeless. These are people that came to Farmers Branch homeless and are staying here. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Can't confirm all of that, but
If we had a case manager, we probably could, right?
I'd have a lot more information for
Understood.
you and rapid
Right.
updates. And so-
I'm not sure that I'm prepared to say, yeah, let's do this. This isn't a budget meeting, but I'll just defer until we get to the budget meeting and have more information.
Okay.
When will the budget meeting be?
Oh, there are lots of budget meetings coming, but this one will be queued up. So based on, we're always looking if there's any way to continue funneling on this one as well. So for example, if there was one amount per one of the groups or anything that y'all were comfortable with, we'll start building the contracts ahead of time to get them ready. But the budget meetings will happen rapidly as we bring them to regular agenda so you can speak to these different groups and have those conversations. So as far as staff is concerned, we have the information ready. Unless there's any additional information you all want, our next step is to invite these different groups to the council meetings, have them start presenting, and then you all ask them any questions about their budget request as part of those meetings. But we'll start immediately because we just can't, there's very limited meetings until the budget's ready, so.
Exactly. I'm prepared to do that, but what about the case manager? When were you going to do that one up for us? Are you asking for us to do that now?
It's just showing that in this budget ecosystem, when we looked at the ceiling amount, which was loosely set, said, hey, can we not go above 450, just as a number that was thrown out there, we could fit that into that ceiling and make the pieces fit together. But no, it's just an idea for how, as I look at things that council has brought up as priorities and needs, and I look at that under their neighborhood umbrella, as investing in our neighborhoods is also managing our homeless population that intersects with those neighborhoods. How are we managing that population? And how are we making sure that relationship is where you all feel comfortable as a council should be? And so it's making sure we have the right tools in the toolbox. Right now, it is a lot of phone calls and a lot of reaching out to groups, and it's always tough because it's going to be a Saturday at 1 or 2 in the morning. It's just tough timing, and also giving that resource to our fire and police departments that they handle their lanes so well, but this is a very interesting lane, so I'm trying to make sure they have the tools they need and who they have to call when we run into one of these situations. What does it look like?
And by doing it as a contract position, that saves us what, about 38%?
Correct, and that's why the salary would be a little bit higher, or the contract amount would be a little bit higher than an employee. But I'm also recognizing we need to see how this works first, and a contract is a much safer alignment to go than adding a head count. That's not what I'm proposing. We already have other needs in the city that, in my opinion, exceed that. But it's a way to get there without adding head count and seeing if it delivers the results I'm hoping for, and council I hope would like to see as well.
Michael, you have anything?
Yes. I am very comfortable in going ahead personally to approve the funding for both of the chambers and for MetroCrest Services. And as nonprofits, you know, they're nonprofits. They're not making money, so they are reliant on the donations and contributions from us as well as individuals and other cities and organizations. And just for the respect that for them, that they can plan their budgets and what they can do, what kind of events they can do or not, I'd be in favor of us not waiting on those. And we discussed the chambers and MetroCrest to some degree in our last meeting as well. So I'm not really in favor of kicking the can down the road. And for the contract position of someone to kind of administer these and get the ball rolling, I think the idea of doing it on a contract basis is good. I know when I was on planning and zoning and we had some employee turnover and things like that, we would always get a contractor and come in and then do a search if we needed and wanted to, you know, for someone full-time. And this is not putting someone on the payroll, has been discussed as well. Those are my thoughts.
Maybe there's an opportunity if you know, if we're not in favor of the contract position as a full-timer, like the amount that we're proposing, maybe there's an opportunity to hire them part-time, given that there may not be enough work for them for a 40-hour work week. I don't know how tedious the work we're asking them to do is, but
It would
just
be
a thought.
deliverable based and not necessarily hourly based. I'd be looking
Okay.
for the deliverables that are in there and those different elements of it. So that's why I added all those different components, because there isn't enough work if you just look at it for this one element. But I look at the other challenges we're facing the repair programs, which can be tough to manage as well, just putting all that together. And so it's deliverable based. That's more of a cap. We would make sure the contract is very fair to the city and deliverable and performance based. So it's not just, hey, thank you for being available for the phone call. No. There will be expectations, including some hours, but that's not a 40-hour style job. There may be weeks where it's an 80-hour job. So if we do have a significant event that damages a lot of houses, we're going to need them a lot of hours. And so it's somebody that can be that flexible with us as well. So it's just finding the right person to fit the needs of the contract and those deliverables. But it's not a standard office job.
Okay.
As I remember last time, it was like $450,000, when did you say it was?
It's just a number to put a
in
cap
there,
on.
and
Kind of
then
a cap
that
or
doesn't
put a
mean
cap.
you're gonna, that just gives the staff some kind of a figure to figure that, and then, you can always reduce it, not give as much or whatever, and you'll be put in a reserve fund or whatever, but that kind of gives, I guess, it gives the staff some criteria to work backwards from. So is everybody comfortable with that, or do you want to do that?
Just have one ask. I know we talked about it in a one-on-one situation before, but could we make sure that the MetroCrest and the Farmers Branch Chamber, that we articulate what we pay in a membership as well as we pay in event fees? And if this is all rolled up into one number or if that's separate, that was very helpful when you could see it in that way. And if it is all together, that's fine. But I think we need to at least call that out so it's understood.
So I'm going to take you to a supplemental slide that I added in here. Oh, sorry, I don't have it. This is the amount that we paid to MetroCrest Chamber so far this year. Because we do have a set amount, but the contracts are performance-based. So when we're paying them, when they deliver, that's when they get paid for their amount. And I'm comparing these two numbers. Farmers Branch Chamber, for example, if they're meeting their objectives, they're getting paid for what they deliver to our community. Compared to Farmers Branch Chamber, and that's where you see the difference. But if I take you back here, the contract is set at $15,000 for them currently. I'm sorry, I'm using this slide, but I know the amount but we do pay them depending on different events. They come in and they ask for example, mayor's prayer breakfast. There is a certain amount for that.
Sure.
And in here, when they're asking for an additional $3,000, that's a regional event that they do with other cities.
And again, I think it's imperative that we highlight that 30,000 is part of the membership and the event cost. That's the point that I'm trying to strive for both of those chambers. I have no qualms with the figures. I'm glad it's been reduced and it's in line with the prior year's work. So I'm just wanting to make sure when we talk about our numbers, that's what we're referring to.
That you're pointing out, we're not just writing a check, but it's performance-based and
Correct.
measurements, yes, yeah.
Correct.
It's a good point, yeah.
Joaria, just to confirm, oh, sorry.
People for specific performance things they're supposed to do. That's beyond the membership.
And Joaria, to confirm, just on the chambers in this instance, the 15,650 and the 30,000 and the other ones, this wouldn't include memberships or events. Those would still be in
Correct.
addition to those contracts. Okay.
Correct.
So that's the baseline number.
And again, I think we need to
making sure.
clarify that. That's the
Okay.
point I'm making. Is it inclusive of that, or is that an augmentation? What I just heard you say, that's an augmentation.
Correct.
And so that's super important that we clarify that.
I just want to make sure I was clarifying what you're asking
Thank
for.
you.
Okay.
Okay.
Joria, one additional piece of information I'd like to see when we do get to the table
Okay.
with the budget discussions is how much of these dollars, whether it's membership, events, or performance-based, it's the total amount each of these organizations are getting from Farmers Branch. What percentage of their total budget is that? I know MetroCrest Services provided their figure, were like 1.7% of their total budget. The family places were 0.8, so less than 1% of their total budget. I didn't see it for the others.
Yeah.
I'd like to just see that measurement though,
Percentage.
when we get to the budget discussions.
Yeah.
No further questions from me.
If I could just add one point, I think when we look at the economy, You know, we are, as you've discussed, Mayor, and as we all know, we're in a very dynamic economic region, the whole, Texas as a whole, but North Texas especially. And be that as it may, you know, in the last 6 to 9 months, we've seen very large layoffs by a lot of the tech companies, most of them based in California. A lot of them are coming back now, like Facebook and others, for a second cut to lay off another 3 or 5 or 8 or 10,000. And in financial services, Morgan Stanley did reduced headcount, you know, the end of last year. Now they're coming back, saying they're going to reduce 3,000 more because the economy is slowing down, and we're seeing that as inflation is starting to come down. And we're also going to come into the summer driving season when gasoline prices are going up. And again, we do have the first big land war in Europe since Second World War. And the Ukrainians are gearing up with our Western support, which I'm 100% in favor of. And so we're going to have a very hot war coming very, very soon. And that introduces another instability. And I think we're going to have higher oil prices. We're probably going to have an increase of 25 basis points tomorrow by the Federal Reserve. So I think the economy is going to slow. And a lot of other companies like 3M and McDonald's and lots of others, in just the last week or two, they've announced big corporate layoffs. And so this is going to spread out and out of just the tech sector, and I think, you know, affect us as well here. And also in my business in the last 6 months and more in the last 3 months, because I track these things, I've heard from more people that have reached out to me who live here in Farmers Branch and Carrollton, et cetera. And they're worried about their job, their hours have been cut back. And a lot of them also are renting homes and apartments, and they want to buy, and I'm working with them to achieve that. But they are being given notice by their apartment owners or by their landlords of homes, and some of these people have rented homes for 8 or 10 years, that their rents are going up $200, $400, $500 a month. And so they're really pretty desperate. So I can see a greater need for a lot of these social services you know, that MetroCrest provides that we've discussed many, many times, you know, in the last couple of years. But I think we do have to look at that while we're in a strong economic position, the economy is rolling over. And most experts expect much higher oil prices and and more layoffs and slower economy. And that's going to lead to, you know, social dislocation, people losing their jobs, and foreclosures have begun to go up also nationwide in the last 6 months. So,
Well, the cost of living here is going up. There's no
Right,
doubt about
right.
it. Real estate costs are going up.
right. But when we say, well, we have 13 homeless
Going to
people in
be
Farmers
living here,
Branch,
it's
you know, it
difficult.
might be 40, you know, in 3 months or 6 months. I mean, we don't know. But again, I think for their planning, you know, I think we could, I'd be in favor of not kicking the can down the road.
Okay, anything else on that?
No, sir.
Got some direction? Okay.
We'll bring it back for further discussion downstairs so the groups can speak and answer your questions.
Okay. With that, is there anything that you would like to have put on the future agenda items?
I do have one. I had an opportunity in my one-on-one with Ben and staff to discuss what I will call a housing program. And what I'm interested in, I'll read what I wrote to them in email, is I'm interested in promoting a document, that would document, I use that word twice, our various housing strategies as we move into the future. This includes how we're addressing things in economic development, from the Builders of Hope to our demo rebuild and to our home repair programs, which is sort of on the periphery here. But this thought is to articulate for everyone today and tomorrow how the city plans to address the housing needs and gaps for all strata, as well as we emphasize that there is also a market-driven builder-renter, landowner economy that is often outside the city control. This would likely dovetail into our comprehensive plan, although I do not believe that the new comprehensive plan will be as definitive as what I have in mind for this consideration. So that would be a housing program plan that I would like to propose as a future agenda item. And I know it's a hefty lift.
We look forward to that discussion, and I believe Allison looks forward to that discussion. Something with the new council coming on board, we definitely need to familiarize them with the current programs and all the initiatives we have underway. So that would be my goal, is June, July, to bring that back for council
Perfectly
to
fine.
review and give any feedback should it be needed.
Very good.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one. It's kind of a follow-up, and this is for you, Ryan. I know we talked about the fountains in Rawhide Creek, and you went into how they've been swept away in these big storms we've had. And now that they're bringing that to completion, you know, the renovations there, particularly at the Webb Chapel and behind the library, is there any way you could talk with consultants or whomever that we could get that one fountain reestablished behind the library? Because I know people that use the library, as well as just people in the city, people that love the parks, really, really enjoyed that a lot. And, you know, you talked about how the storms have kind of uprooted it, but there's just got to be a way that we can anchor it or something, you know, because other places, they have fountains, and we could bring that back. And I've heard from residents that, you know, they miss them, obviously.
I'll have to look into that and see if we can adequately anchor at that location, because the flow right there, whenever the floodwaters do come up and it rushes through that area, where that area widens out, we've kind of shrunk it down a little bit when they put the berm down behind
Right.
the library. So it's gonna increase some of the velocities in that area. But in doing so, it's also gonna take away some of the velocities further downstream where the channel's naturally widened out. I'll have to look at, see what those
Yeah.
velocities look like, see if we could anchor. It's not just anchoring the pump, it's anchoring the power to the pump.
I
the pump
understand,
To the
yeah,
pump.
I understand, but especially right behind the library that you're referring to, with the berm that's narrowed it a bit, it is still wider there over toward the library, where maybe, you know, we wouldn't have the fountain centered in the stream, but a bit over
Maybe
to the side.
investigate
so-
where it's up, out of the
Yeah.
swell effect. We can look into that and see what we
Okay.
can do.
All right. I know it'd make a lot of people happy.
All right.
Okay. If we have no other things to be brought forward, we'll recess the study session. The time is 5:40. We'll meet downstairs in regular session at 6 PM. Thank you all.